Let me tell you a story about Sarah. She was out for a run in her neighborhood like she ordinarily does when a German Shepherd suddenly charged through an open gate, jumped on her, and bit her right in the arm, badly enough to need stitches. The next day, the dog owner's insurance company called with an offer, $1,500 plus a few $1,000s for her medical bills if she'd just sign a release. Now that seemed fair enough for a trip to the ER, so she took it. But fast forward a week later and now her arm's infected. She ends up needing 3 surgeries over the next year and has permanent nerve damage and over $87,000 in medical bills. And because she'd signed that release early on, she couldn't get another penny from the insurance company or the dog owner. Now that quick payout cost her probably what would have been a settlement deep into the 6 figures. Hey there, I'm Kevin Jones from Empower Injury Law, and over the past 15 years, I've helped countless dog bite victims get fair compensation for their injuries. I've watched the same critical mistakes happen over and over again, mistakes that can literally cost bite victims tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. Today, I'm going to walk you through the 5 biggest mistakes people make after a dog bite. Insurance companies are banking on you making at least one of these errors. They train their adjusters specifically to exploit these common missteps. But by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to do and what not to do if you or someone you care about gets bitten. I've seen these mistakes cost clients real money, and I want to make sure you're protected. Mistake number 1 is not documenting the scene immediately. When you've just been bitten by a dog, your adrenaline is pumping. You're dealing with pain, shock, and possibly bleeding. Most people are focused solely on getting medical help, and understandably so. Some are even in a state of disbelief thinking, did this really just happen? Your body's fight or flight response is activated, and documenting evidence is the last thing on your mind. But here's what's happening behind the scenes. The moment a dog bite occurs, a clock starts ticking. Physical evidence begins to change or disappear, sometimes intentionally. Dog owners often immediately begin altering the scene, fixing broken gates, adding beware of dog signs, or even temporarily relocating the dog itself. Without photographic evidence, cases quickly devolve into your word against theirs, and insurance companies will often use this as a basis to deny your claim. I had a client named Mary who was bitten in her neighbor's backyard. The dog had escaped through a broken gate, and the dog had been reported to the Homeowners Association 3 separate times for barking and aggressive behavior. By the time Mary called me just 2 days later, her neighbors had fixed the gate, put up beware of dog signs, and were telling everyone that their dog was actually on a leash when the incident occurred. We had absolutely no proof of the conditions that led to the attack. So here's what you need to do. If you're bitten, make sure you're safe, then have someone take photos of everything before leaving the scene if possible. Document the dog, the exact location, any containment failures like broken fences or gates, warning signs or lack thereof, and your fresh injuries. Get contact information from any witnesses, and if you're too injured to do this yourself, ask someone to do it for you or return to the scene as soon as possible. These photos become indisputable evidence that can make the difference between a successful case and a denied claim. And don't just take a single photo, take multiple photos from different angles. A client of mine who did this was able to prove that a beware of dog sign was actually placed after the incident because his earlier photos showed no sign present at all. This one detail helped us increase his settlement by over $30,000. Mistake number 2 is not reporting the bite to animal control. Most of us were raised to handle problems directly with neighbors or friends without involving the authorities. There's strong social pressure to keep things informal, especially when we know who the dog owner is. We worry about getting someone's beloved pet in trouble or creating tension in the neighborhood. Many dog bites happen on the property of someone the victim knows, a friend, family member, or neighbor. And this natural reluctance to make things official creates a serious vulnerability in dog bite cases. Without formal documentation, the entire foundation of your claim can be questioned or denied. Insurance companies know this, and they might even suggest to you there's no need to report the bite. They'll take care of everything. They're not doing this out of kindness, but they're doing this because an unreported bite is far easier to dispute or deny entirely. Official reports create a government record that establishes critical facts the insurance companies cannot easily dispute. Now, many people fear that reporting a dog bite means automatic trouble for the dog, perhaps even euthanasia. But this is rarely the case, especially for first-time incidents. What animal control actually does is create an official report documenting the date, time, location, dog breed, vaccination status, and owner information. And this becomes crucial evidence that the insurance companies cannot ignore. I had a case where my client Tom was bitten by a dog during a barbecue at his friend's house. It wasn't his friend's dog, but a friend of a friend's. The dog owner promised to cover all of Tom's medical costs, and Tom didn't want to cause any drama, so Tom didn't report it. Later, the wound developed a serious infection, so bad that he had to spend a couple nights at the hospital and his bills hit $22,000. The friend's insurance company ended up denying the claim entirely because the friend of a friend was worried about what might happen to the dog and told the insurance company that he never even brought the dog to the barbecue. The insurance company then told Tom that there was no proof the dog was involved since no report was ever filed. They suggested that Tom's injury might even be from something else because he waited so long to get medical treatment, and they tried to stick Tom with the bills. So here's what to do. Report every dog bite to the police or your animal control agency, regardless of the severity or whose dog it was. In most jurisdictions, you can do this by phone or online, and provide clear, factual information about what happened without embellishing anything. And request a copy of the report for your records. This simple step creates an official timestamp and record of the incident that could become invaluable if the insurance company questions your story about what happened. Mistake number 3 is talking to insurance adjusters too quickly and without understanding their tactics. Within 24 to 48 hours after a dog bite, you'll likely receive a call from an insurance adjuster, and they'll sound incredibly friendly and concerned about your well-being. Now, most people naturally want to be cooperative and helpful when they're asked questions, and the conversation feels casual and non-threatening, often starting with questions like, "How are you feeling?" What you don't realize is that these calls are carefully designed to draw out specific admissions that will later be used to minimize or deny your claim. Insurance adjusters receive extensive training in conversation techniques that seem innocent but are actually strategic. They operate from prepared scripts designed by teams of lawyers specifically to extract statements that could damage your claim. Everything you say is being evaluated not for your care, but for how it can limit their company's financial liability. Here's exactly how these calls are structured. They first establish rapport with friendly small talk, trying to make you feel at ease. Then they ask seemingly innocent questions that are actually legal landmines, like, "How are you feeling today?" If you politely say, "I'm doing okay," or "better, thanks," they document that your injuries aren't severe or that you are rapidly improving, even if you're still in significant pain. When they ask for a recorded statement just to process your claim faster, they're actually trying to lock in your early account before you even know the full extent of your injuries or understand the legal implications of your words. Their questions often follow a pattern designed to shift blame to you. They'll ask, "What exactly were you doing at the location?" trying to suggest that you might have been trespassing. Or, "Did you see any warning signs about the dog?" trying to prove that you were warned. They might even ask, "What did you do when you first saw the dog?" where they're fishing for anything they can use to argue that you provoked the dog's behavior. I had a client named Jennifer who was bitten while delivering a package. The insurance adjuster called while she was still on pain medication from the ER, and when she'd asked if she'd ever been to the property before, she said yes, she delivered packages there many times. The adjuster then asked if she'd ever seen or heard the dog before, and she mentioned that she'd heard barking on previous occasions. 6 months later, the insurance company tried to use these statements to reduce her settlement by 40%, claiming that she knew of the potential danger, but went on the property anyway, even though she was just doing her job. So here's your protection plan. If you're contacted by an insurance adjuster, politely decline to discuss the incident or your injuries. Simply say, "I'm not comfortable discussing this right now. Please put all your questions in writing and just email them to me." Do not provide a recorded statement, sign any documents, or accept a settlement offer without consulting a lawyer who specializes in dog bite cases. Mistake number 4 is underestimating the true extent of your injuries. Most people have a natural optimism about injuries. We want to believe we'll heal quickly and completely. We think it's just a bite, it'll heal, especially if the initial wound doesn't look particularly severe. There's also often an element of embarrassment or a desire to downplay what happened, particularly if we know the dog or its owner. Dog bites are medically unique injuries that behave differently from cuts or scrapes from other causes. They're puncture wounds that often seal quickly on the surface while bacteria trapped inside multiplies in the perfect warm and dark environment. A dog's mouth contains over 600 types of bacteria, many of which cause serious infections in humans. Studies show that between 15 and 20% of dog bites develop infections, some of which can progress to life-threatening conditions like sepsis, bone infection, or cellulitis. And beyond the physical injuries, about 28% of dog bite victims develop psychological effects, including PTSD, anxiety around dogs, or even agoraphobia. These psychological impacts, while less visible, can often require therapy and can affect quality of life for years. I had a client named Lisa who was bitten on the face by her friend's dog during a birthday party. The bite left 2 puncture wounds on her cheek that the ER cleaned and then closed up with a few stitches. The initial medical bill was around $2,400, and the insurance company quickly offered her $6,500. And honestly, that seemed reasonable for what looked like a minor facial injury that would heal in a week or two. But Lisa was smart. She waited to see how she healed before accepting anything. What nobody anticipated was the scarring she would have on her cheek. Even though the wounds healed, they left permanent, visible scars on her face. More importantly, Lisa developed a severe fear of dogs that affected her life. Before the bite, she was a dog lover. And after the bite, she didn't trust dogs. She stopped visiting friends who had pets, avoided taking her kids to the park where dogs might be present, and even would cross the street when she saw someone who was walking a dog. She ended up needing both a scar revision surgery and months of counseling to deal with the psychological trauma. Her total cost exceeded over $18,000, but more than that, the emotional impact on her life was something no one had considered in that early settlement offer. We eventually recovered $85,000 for her, covering not just her medical costs, but also compensation for the permanent scarring and ongoing psychological effects. So here's what you can learn from Lisa. Treat every dog bite as potentially serious, regardless of how minor it initially appears. Get medical attention right away, and be sure to tell the doctor it was a dog bite, because this changes the treatment protocol. Then follow all medical advice, take all prescribed antibiotics, even if the wound looks like it's healing, and attend all follow-up appointments. Keep a daily journal documenting your pain levels, limitations, and how the injury affects your daily life and work. And most importantly, never accept an early settlement offer until you're certain of your complete prognosis and have been released from care by your doctor. Mistake number 5. Believing the dog has never bitten before means you don't have a case. After a dog bite, you might hear the owner say something like, "He's never bitten anyone before, this is so out of character." And that kind of thing can cause a lot of people to second guess themselves. If it's the dog's first offense, do I even have a case? Here's the truth. In many states, dog bite laws follow a strict liability standard. This means that the owner is legally responsible if their dog bites someone, regardless of whether the dog has ever shown any aggression before. You don't have to prove that the dog was known to be dangerous, you just have to prove that the dog caused your injuries. Now, some states still apply what's known as the one bite rule. And despite the name, this rule doesn't always mean a dog gets one free bite. It simply means that liability depends on whether the owner knew or should have known their dog had dangerous tendencies. And that can certainly be proven by evidence that the dog bit someone before, but it can also include past aggressive behavior like growling, lunging, or snapping, not just prior bites. This reminds me of a case where I worked with a professional photographer who was hired by a family to take portraits in their backyard, and the family also wanted their Rottweiler included in a few shots as well. And as the photographer approached to frame the dog in the shot, the dog suddenly lunged and bit her on the wrist and hand, leaving 2 deep lacerations. She had done nothing to provoke the attack, but the injury required medical treatment that left her with permanent nerve damage, as well as a fear of being around dogs. She also missed 2 weeks of work. And at first, the photographer didn't think she had a case. She had heard about the one bite rule and assumed that because the dog had never bitten anyone before, there was nothing she could do about it. It wasn't until a friend urged her to at least call me that she finally reached out. And thanks to Missouri's strict liability law, we didn't need to prove the dog bit anyone before, just that the dog bit her and caused her injuries. We ultimately got her a substantial settlement, not just for the medical bills and lost income that she had, but also for the emotional trauma and the permanent scarring. Just remember this point. Lack of bite history does not always equal lack of responsibility. If something like this has happened to you or someone close to you, you don't have to try to figure it out all on your own. You can give us a call or use a link in the description below to get your free legal strategy call. No pressure, no cost, and no obligation. Take care of yourself and feel free to reach out if you need a hand.